Happy morning, children. Welcome back. This is your English online class for Standard 5. Take your literature book, pen, pencil, and be ready. Now open your literature book to page number 55. Come on. Page 55. Very good. Now you have the lesson named Wrecked on a Desert Island by the author Daniel Defoe. He's a very famous author, children. We are going to learn points about the famous author. Look at the screen, children. He is Daniel Defoe. Look at his period, 1661 to 1731. He lived centuries back. And he has written a famous book, Robinson Crusoe. Have you read this book? You will love the story. It's a very adventurous book. When you find time, just read this book. Daniel Defoe was a journalist, writer, pamphleteer, novelist. Okay, so now here, look at the screen. Who is a journalist? A journalist is a person who collects, writes, takes photographs, processes, edits or comments on news or other topical information to the public. The work which a journalist do is called journalism. So our author Daniel Defoe was a journalist. And he was also a pamphleteer. What is a pamphleteer? A writer of pamphlets, especially ones of a political and controversial nature. Have you seen this kind of big notices they give when we walk on the road? Also they'll come and give us. Yes, these are only called as pamphlets. Look here, pamphlet is a small leaflet or booklet used for advertising. You call it as a flyer also, children, a flyer which provides information about politicians' beliefs, or a leaflet advertising any new products. Yes, okay. So now Daniel Defoe was a pamphleteer. That is, he writes pamphlets. And then what does he write there? Especially ones of a political and controversial nature. Yeah, he was very brisk and active, I should say, because he has written whatever has come to his mind in pamphlets, and then he distributed to the public. Mostly it will be very argumentative. Okay, but now the pamphlets which we receive when we walk on the road are all almost of advertisements, right? You know, children, in 1719, Daniel Defoe finished and published Robinson Crusoe, a long, imaginative literary masterpiece. Very interesting novel, children. It was popular with the public and has never lost its appeal to adventure. As I told you, it's an adventurous novel. And he has written other novels also. Okay. Other novels soon followed in addition to his articles and essays. So now in your literature book, you have Wrecked on a Desert Island. A ship got wrecked, and the adventures of Robinson Crusoe is given here. Just a small piece of the big novel is given here. It's just an extract. Okay, now you are going to listen to the audio. Listen to the audio fully, understand, then you can play one more time and then read. Okay.
Wrecked on a desert island. We set sail on the day I went on board. We were moving away from our own coast in Brazil towards the north. We planned to reach over for the African coast. We had very good weather, although it was excessively hot, till we came to the height of Cape St. Augustino, from where, keeping further off at sea, we lost sight of land. Suddenly, the ship struck upon sand. And in a moment, her motion stopped. At the same time, the sea broke over her in such a manner that we thought we would all die immediately. We were immediately driven into our close quarters to shelter ourselves from the froth and spray of the sea. It is not easy for anyone who has not been in this kind of condition to describe or imagine the fear in such conditions.
We knew nothing about where we were.
We had no idea about what land we had been driven towards, whether it was an island or a mainland. We did not know whether the island was or not inhabited. As the anger of the wind was still great, we were certain that the ship would soon break into pieces, unless a miracle happened and the winds would turn about immediately. We sat looking upon one another and expecting death every moment. Every man began preparing for another world, because there was little or nothing more for us to do in this. The only comfort we had was when the master said that the wind had started to slow a little. Now, though the wind did decrease a little, it was not much help to us. The ship was struck upon the sand. There was no hope of getting her off. We were in a dreadful condition indeed, and we had nothing to do but to think of saving our lives. We thought of the boats in the ship. We had a boat at our stern just before the storm, but during the storm, she had broken by dashing against the ship's rudder. She had either sunk or was driven off to sea, so there was no hope from her. We had another boat on board, but how to get her off into the sea was not clear. However, there was no time for thinking much. We felt that our ship would break into pieces any minute. In fact, some people told us she was actually broken already. In this situation, the mate of our vessel held the second boat, and with the help of the rest of the men, he slung the boat over the ship's side. All 11 of us got into her and surrendered ourselves to God's mercy and the wild sea. Though the storm had become weak, yet the sea ran really high upon the shore, and might as well be called Den Wild Zee, as the Dutch called the sea in a storm. Now our situation was very bleak, because we all saw plainly that the sea went so high that the boat could not survive. We were certain that we would drown. There was no way to make sail, so we rowed hard by working at the oars, aiming to guide us towards the land. After we had rowed for a few leagues, a raging mountain-like wave came rolling astern of us. It took us with such a fury that it overset the boat at once. We did not have time even to say, "Oh God!" We were swallowed by the sea in a moment. Nothing can describe the confusion I felt as I sank into the water. Though I swam very well, yet I could not lift myself from the depth of the sea even to draw some breath. Suddenly, a wave lifted me and carried me a long way onto the shore of an island. I was almost dead, as I had swallowed a lot of water. With great difficulty, I got upon my feet and tried to make towards the land as far as I could, attempting to avoid another wave should it return and swamp me again. But I soon found it was impossible to avoid the next wave. The sea came after me as high as a great hill and as furiously as an enemy. I had no energy to fight it. I planned to hold my breath and raise myself above the water if I could. and tried to pilot myself to the shore. I was afraid that the wave that carried me away from the shore might not bring me back to the shore again. It may throw me deeper into the sea. The wave buried me at once 20 or 30 feet deep in its own body, and I could feel myself carried with a mighty force and swiftness towards the shore. I held my breath and tried to swim still forward with all my might. I was almost going to burst due to holding my breath. However, surprisingly, I felt myself rising up. To my immediate relief, I found my head and hands shoot out above the surface of the water. Though it was just for about 2 seconds of time that I could hold myself above water, yet it relieved me greatly. It gave me breath and new courage. I was soon covered again with water and again thrown to land. I felt ground again with my feet. I stood still a few moments to catch my breath, until the waters went from me, and then took to my heels and ran with whatever strength I had, further towards the shore. But this did not help me from the fury of the sea, which came pouring in after me again. And twice more I was lifted up by the waves and carried forward as before. The last time of these 2 times was almost deadly to me, because the sea, having hurried me along as before, landed me, or rather dashed me, against a piece of rock. I was dashed on this rock with such force that it left me senseless and helpless. I was badly hit on my side and chest. This beat the breath out of my body. If the wave had returned again immediately, I might have been smothered in the water. I recovered a little before the return of the waves. Seeing that I could be covered again with the water, I decided to hold fast by a piece of the rock and to hold my breath, if possible, till the wave went back. Now, as the waves were not so high as at first, I held my hold till the wave decreased. As soon as I had a chance to try to run again, this brought me so near the shore that the next wave, though it went over me, yet did not so swallow me. It could not carry me away. And with the next run I took, I got to the mainland. There, I clambered up the cliffs of the shore and sat myself down upon the grass, free from danger and quite out of the water's reach. I was now landed and safe on shore, and began to look up and thank God that my life was saved. Just a few minutes ago, I had no hope of being alive. It is impossible to express what the joys are when one is so saved from death. I walked about on the shore, lifting up my hands, and my whole being, as I may say, wrapped up in a meditation of my escape from death. I made 1,000 gestures and motions which I cannot describe. I reflected upon all my comrades who had drowned. I wondered why there wasn't anyone saved but myself. Because I only saw 3 of their hats, 1 cap, and 2 shoes that were not a pair. I looked for the shipwrecked vessel, but the froth of the sea being so big hardly let me see it. After I had consoled my mind, I began to look around me to see what kind of place I was in, and what was next to be done. I was wet, had no dry clothes to change into, nor anything to eat or drink. I had no choice but to die from hunger or be eaten by wild beasts. I had no weapon, either to hunt or kill any wild animal. I only had a knife and 2 more possessions. These were all my provisions. and this worried me so much that for a while I ran about like a madman. Night coming upon me, I began with a heavy heart to plan how I would save myself from hungry beasts. I walked about a furlong from the shore to see if I could find any fresh water to drink. To my great joy, I found sweet water. I drank to my stomach's fill. Then I went to a nearby tree and, getting up into it, tried to place myself so that if I should fall asleep, I might not fall. I cut for myself a short stick, like a club, for defense. Then I took up my lodging, and having been excessively fatigued, I fell fast asleep.